as the planning board considers some pavement or building, we can, plug this into our tool and really understand the sustainability impacts of that potential project. So let me share my screen and I will give the floor to Linda and Shannon. All right, I tried to share that. You should be seeing that. And great. So Linda or Shannon, can you just introduce yourself and talk a little bit more about what I just sort of laid out?
Sure. Garrett, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Linda.
Okay. So thank you for that introduction and thank you for the opportunity to present our project initiative to all of you this evening. I am a member of the board of the Aspen International Mountain Foundation, and Shannon, my colleague, is a graduate student at Western. She's engaged in the Master's in Environmental Management program as we speak. And we're working collaboratively under the umbrella of the Mountain Resilience Coalition, as Garrett just said, to develop a set of performance indicators for mountain communities that are aligned with the global sustainable development goals. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with that framework, but it's very complex with 17 goals, 169 targets, and 230 indicators. And what we're aiming to do with our affiliation with the UN Mountain Partnership is to simplify that framework and make it practical and usable for mountain communities. So I know on this slide that you're viewing, you may not be able to see the detail, but if Garrett provides you that one page sort of summary, it gives you kind of a bit of the who, what, where, when, how of this project. But really what we're trying to do is develop a tool for setting goals and tracking performance and planning actions around sustainability in general, including its environmental, social, and economic dimensions. But this pilot part of the project has focused exclusively on the environmental indicators. So as Garrett has said, we took this global framework, we simplified it, and we tested it on Gunnison County over the last several months. And we're still in the middle of that work, but we're aiming to test this work with other communities that may be interested. And what's important about it is it's not just another planning document. It's actually taking data-driven, data information, performance-based information to drive action. And one of the priority areas for action is climate action planning. So we do believe that these indicators are very much so relevant to environmental sustainability in general, but to climate action planning specifically. So when I heard about Garrett's role and a little bit about Netherland, we thought it was a great opportunity to sort of give you a very high-level overview of a tool that we've developed that we'd love to collaborate on if there's interest, to try to help not only with your strategic planning processes, but specifically your climate action planning. And we believe the indicators that are housed within the environmental dashboard are very much so relevant to climate action planning and performance around climate. So that's a high-level overview. I know it's a lot to absorb, so without a demonstration of the tool itself, which is now based in an Excel spreadsheet, it's difficult maybe to understand, but we have 6 themes across environmental sustainability and 50 or so indicators across those 6 themes. And then we go from alignment with the global framework to a simplified translated version that's more digestible or accessible. And then we move on to the data collection, and then we inventory all the actions associated with those indicators, and we either capture all of what's already being done or we make recommendations about what we think could be done going forward. One point I'll just make to close out my sort of little summary is it's really important to make it relevant to the community that we're working with and to prioritize things based on what's important to them. So it's not about collecting data for the sake of collecting data. It's about targeting the materially important areas of sustainability for that community and prioritizing accordingly. So I just wanted to summarize at a high level. We work with Gunnison County and maybe spent, let's call it, between 2 to 5 hours a week, myself and a fellow graduate student or a graduate student, working with county staff or folks in the community, specialists in the community, to collect the data across all of these themes of environmental sustainability. And so we thought that Netherland might be a great candidate for such a tool in not only your planning efforts, but also in your climate action planning. I'll invite Shannon to step in, and she's new to the project because she's just starting her program, but I'll ask if she wants to add anything to what I have already said.
Thanks, Linda. That was an excellent summary. I guess just to add, the contribution that we would be asking from Nederland and from Garrett is like pretty small. The brunt of the work is going to be me and Linda, and then what we're asking from you guys is help in finding the data, and then we will collect it in this one cohesive package and present it back with our recommendations so that you can use that data as a tool for climate action planning or sustainability planning going forward, and as a way to showcase the efforts that you're already making. So, yeah.
How long do you think this would take in terms of, how many months or weeks?
So, Garrett, this is Linda speaking. So you, Netherland, have, a choice. We have designed this around what we call approach light or a deeper approach. So we went with a deep dive data collection with Gunnison County because we were testing the approach and the content. But something we might recommend for Netherland, but it would certainly be up to you, is sort of a high level assessment, which would be sort of just an inventory of what you're currently doing, what data you currently collect or is available, and what actions are already happening and or recommendations. And we would, I think, if we went with a high level approach, it might be 2 to 5 hours a week, depending on availability. Let's call it 2 months, 2.5 months. We could be finished with all 6 themes.
Okay. Are there any questions?
I think it would be good to get, it's good to see things online, but, and so I'd like to see materials that we could share with, the whole board. And then maybe if you have any kind of handouts, that would be useful. If you have examples of the kind of information you gathered elsewhere and what the results were, that would really be good to see too. But, it looks very intriguing. So I appreciate your presentation.
Thank you. Yeah, sure. I think we could share with you a sampling of information, for example, that we gathered from Gunnison County. It's most of the information, a lot of the information is public, so we would just maybe clear it through them just from a protocol perspective, but then go ahead and share with you possibly a sampling of the type of data that we collected and what was the outcome of collecting that data and the actions that are underway and or the types of recommendations that came from it. The other thing we can do is provide you a very short video, which was part of a master's project that gives you effectively a demo of the tool. So you have a little bit more insight about what we're talking about without the, the full blown detail of it. But we can certainly provide you the brief We can provide you a sampling of data and some of the outcomes and what we plan to do with that data collected on Gunnison County. And then further, of course, the demo of the tool. If anybody individually or collectively was interested in us giving you a detailed demo, we'd be happy to do that.
That sounds good. Thank you. I'll look forward to seeing it.
Sure. It's quite a weighted project, so it's hard to absorb all at once, but we just thought we would give you a very high level overview.
Sure.
Hey everybody, it's Erica. Sorry I'm late.
Hey, Erica, were you able to listen in on this opportunity about the Mountain Resilience Coalition?
I was not. I apologize. I can catch up with one of you later and get caught up to speed.
Okay, that sounds good.
Could you maybe send the video out to the whole board, something we could just watch on our own time?
Yeah, I've got it, and I can share with you all.
Thank you.
And I'll send you this what you're looking at right now as well.
What we call the project brief, yeah. And then after that, of course, you all discuss it, and if it seems interesting enough for us to kind of expand on the introductory piece on how it would relate to climate action planning, we would be happy to illuminate that further.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Linda. If there's no other questions.
Yeah, I do have a question. This is Melody Baumhover. Quite a long time ago, probably more than a decade ago now, we had a sustainability action plan created for the town, and there's definitely several efforts in that plan that have still not been completed. So I guess my question is regarding, if we were to do this deep dive of the data, or even just with the smaller look at the data, what are the kind of measurable actions that might be suggested based on this plan, or is this just more of an analysis type tool?
So again, this is Linda. So what we try to do is capture all the current or proposed actions that are in play, whether what you consider to be active or potential for the future. And you would see that when you start to collect, for example, information around energy or water, waste or transportation, your current actions might inform what you will do next in terms of driving your priorities. But it might illuminate when you start to collect all of your information in one dashboard, if you will, you start to see how, if you make a land use decision, how it'll impact these other areas. So it might illuminate new actions or recommendations. Or for example, in the case of Gunnison, if we found that certain information was lacking and you couldn't really act on a lack of data, we would recommend that maybe a graduate student project would be to go and collect and form that data. So in your climate action planning, for example, if one of the top priorities would be to start that planning process and you have a greenhouse gas inventory, or you need to update your greenhouse gas inventory before you might put a plan together, a recommendation might be to update your inventory before you might start to plan around mitigation type activity. So what it really illuminates is, what do you have now? What have you currently talked about or done to take note and credit for all the good work that's already being done, and then to prioritize it really in terms of meeting your goals. So this process really cascades to what are your priorities, what are your goals, and how then can you use these indicators, these performance measurements, to benchmark against those goals, and then take the actions that you can prioritize over the short, mid, and long term. And so it really is around, we didn't really want to create another planning tool that just talks about what to do. We actually wanted the data to really drive action towards priority areas. And the way that sort of fits within the global context is we're talking about the next 10 years and benchmarking today in 2020 and what does our performance look like against the 2030 agenda, which is the global SDG 2030 agenda. So we're looking at communities doing the same thing, but at a local level. What is our benchmark performance today? And if we measure again in 5-10 years, did we make progress towards our goals? And hopefully they align with those global sustainable development goals as well. So yes, it's very much so driven towards not just listing actions, but prioritize your actions and then planning for them.
Thank you. Yeah.
Is this something that this dashboard would be something the public would see as a way to motivate certain actions? Like if you were saying we want to conserve water, here's what our dashboard is looking like. Is it something the public would ever be seeing?
So you, the community, have can display the data. You will take ownership over your own data, and you can display the data to the public in any which way you see useful. So in the Gunnison case, they have a State of the Valley report, for example, and they do publish some of their environmental and other sustainability data in that report. And so what you would do is showcase for the public's purposes, possibly year on year, updates or important information around progress that you're making in any of these areas. So you don't have to publish every data point, but you could publish select stories around these data points and show the community what type of progress you're making on materially important areas. But you could make potentially your dashboard as public as you, the community, chooses to. So, for example, I worked for the city of Aspen. We worked on their first ever sustainability report, and the entire report is out there for public display. It wasn't through this project, but they have the entire report with all 70 plus indicators, environmental, social, and economic, on display for the public.
And Linda, the way I understand it, this is not software. This is really looking at data and planning efforts. So it's not like we're going to write some HTML code and display it on our town website. This is really just data and analysis and project planning. And then we could do what we want with that. We can add that information to our website manually if we want. Is that correct?
I think that's right. So basically, it's right now housed in an Excel spreadsheet, and each community that we work with will get their own spreadsheet. And we will have to talk about how internally staff will share that sort of spreadsheet and how it gets updated. So we had those conversations with Gunnison. But that's exactly right. You can put on your website whatever you feel like you would like to publish, but you don't have to share all of the, let's say, tool or dashboard. Let me just mention, though, we are talking about if we get funding over time to develop a technology platform that would potentially be subscription-based, where communities can sign in, have access to their own space, and can collect all of their data or seek help or expertise, like push a button and say, I'm requesting assistance on water indicators, for example. We would respond to that. And then they can choose to keep their information to themselves, or they can choose potentially to share their information with other mountain communities. Or we start to develop a network access by many communities across our region that can start to see what other communities are doing, not only in terms of data, but also in terms of actions. So we have a broader, longer term vision, which kind of goes a little bit more regional and global. But for now, we're just testing the concept and the content with communities just through an Excel based, and you take ownership over your own data and your own information.
Hey, everybody, it's Erica. So I just heard the Excel and data and had a little mini panic attack just because I didn't catch who would be responsible for updating this information and managing this platform.
Right. So this is again Linda speaking. We understand, and we did sort of a SWOT analysis of what we learned from Gunnison County, and there's absolutely no doubt that capacity and capability came up over and over again. And so part of what we as a nonprofit coalition are offering is consultant level expertise combined with student expertise to get you to your benchmark. And then there would be conversations about, if you take full ownership over it, what would be your cycle for updating this data? And, you know, most organizations would not update it year on year unless they had automated systems or the capacity to do so. But you might say, okay, every 3 years, we're going to take time to go ahead and update this and make sure that we're looking at our performance against our benchmark of 2020 or 2021. So you would have to come to a sort of institutional decision or organizational decision about how often you could maintain the data, whether you would need additional capacity. As long as we continue to be involved, there would be a level of assistance, but we are really trying to develop this with self-sufficiency in mind, in the sense that the organization would not feel it necessarily painful to do so. And that maybe you're not collecting data across all 50 indicators all of the time, but the ones that you're trying to drive forward in terms of being materially important and making a difference. So you can really slice it the way it works for your organization without it being necessarily burdensome. But we would have to work a little bit together for me to probably convince you of that. Did that make sense? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that makes sense. I appreciate that clarification.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a good system, and I share Erica's concern. I think bandwidth would be the issue, but depending on how easily the tool is used, that's key. And I think taking a look at the video will be very informative.
Yeah. And Shannon and I are here to support Garrett and all of yourselves to get you to this initial assessment, if you will, and possibly the deeper dive. And during that process, I think you'd come to realize what is easily accessible. We're already collecting this data. You know, it's not difficult. And then what other areas where it's a little bit more resource intensive, and then coming to some recommendations on how, if that data is important to you or those areas are important to you, how do you bridge any capacity gaps over time? And again, it's totally on your own pace and based on your own priorities. So I don't think it's necessarily something that has to be a barrier to engaging with it.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Well, Linda, thank you so much. Shannon, thank you so much for presenting this information to you. I will certainly, or to us, I'll certainly be following up with you both.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for allowing us to speak tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Garrett.
See ya.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thank you.
All right. So to continue the climate action planning, we talked briefly last meeting about some DOLA opportunities. And so I did a little digging. They have, they started out with 10 million. They're down to $5 million remaining in for renewable energy initiatives. Having done some research, they are funding climate action planning efforts and that sort of thing. I know we talked about climate action And I think Karen actually forwarded us an email about, is the SAB considering climate action planning? So that's why I sort of coupled the mountain sustainability indicators with this sort of exploration of DOLA funds. Sort of my take on it is that, if we did decide that the indicators was worthwhile, that, doing that effort might increase the chance of actually developing a full climate action plan. The first deadline for DOLA funding is October 1st. So that's right around the corner. The second deadline is March 1st. So keep those two dates in mind. Now, I know Alan mentioned at least one renewable energy idea, which was, some rooftop solar on top of town hall that would, that would essentially heat town hall because that building is, is an energy consumer. But another opportunity that I heard Alan talk about at the BOT meeting earlier this month was partnering with the food pantry and doing maybe rooftop solar on top of the food pantry or wherever. I'm not familiar with the food pantry, but doing some sort of saving the food pantry on energy and applying that to potentially allowing them to give food away for free. So it's sort of it's sort of a win-win for the food pantry and their customers. So I just wanted to throw those ideas, the mountain sustainability indicators, some different possibilities for DOLA funding out there for the group. So do you guys have any thoughts on those ideas?
Just a clarification about what I suggested. One is just flat out solar on top of town hall. The other was, there's the food pantry and there's the food co-op. The food pantry already gives away food. And there are solar panels on top of the community center where they operate. But my kind of unusual suggestion was put solar panels on the food co-op, different operation downtown. They take the money that they save and donate food to the food pantry. So that's kind of a roundabout way of creatively using solar energy. Whereas, just putting solar panels on town hall and then having it run electric heaters to offset natural gas is a lot more straightforward.
So I think one of the challenges that Miranda we're going to have is kind of that infrastructure side. Town hall, there's a concern about the stability of our roof just in general. So while yes, Garrett, it definitely sucks up resources. There's a little bit of an infrastructure, and then the co-op is a right-of-way problem. That whole building comes into the town right-of-way. So I think from a zoning and planning commission standpoint, there is a hesitation of wanting to add that continued problem. So I'm all for this, but I think whatever route we go, we will then probably have that infrastructure and planning commission side we need to deal with.
Well, certainly if the roof is an issue, you don't want to put solar panels on it. Yeah. The ideal situation is you have an almost new roof that isn't, being scheduled for replacement at any time in the future. The other idea was the visitor center, which, I think has gas heat, and I think it's hot water boiler type heat. And, you could put hot water solar on the visitor center. Mm-hmm. That'd be a possibility. I don't know how new that roof is, or how. My impression is that building's in reasonably good shape and was recently at least given a facelift. I don't know about the roof.
Yeah, that's a much more appropriate building, I think, if we're looking at town-specific property.
Yeah, so I think those would be the two possibilities on visitor center, food co-op. And I have not talked to the food co-op to see if they'd even be interested. Does anybody know if they own that building they're in?
I think they do.
They do?
Well, that could be wrong. I thought they did.
Okay.
That side of the street, I'm not entirely sure. It kind of bounces between people as you go down.
Is there already solar on the town shop?
There's already solar on the co-op?
You said the town shop. Yes. I believe the town shop was built.
Visitor center, which is not being used right now because of COVID.
Sharon did move back there, actually. She's about to open in her building.
Well, what do people think of these ideas?
This is Hunter. Oh, sorry. This is Hunter. I was just going to say, I think they're great ideas. I love the idea of using the visitor center, but I'm excited about the idea of having solar on the co-op and donating food to the food or more food to the food pantry. I love that as well. But it may be worth going through the extra effort to make it happen. But thanks. I think these are great.
Thank you. Good. Anyone else?
I had both of those ideas. This is Laura. Also, I think it would be really interesting if you could make the visitor center have a bit of an educational piece to it, like a little bit of a behind the scenes. Here's how the solar's working. Oh, here's how much it's producing. Sort of an educational piece added to it, I think would make it even, since there's so many people walking through there, might make it even more interesting.
Good idea.
I like that, Laura. That's really cool.
I like all the ideas. With the co-op, I see a length of time as potentially an issue, just depending on what happens 5 years from now, or 10 years from now, or 20 years from now. Solar, you're thinking, at least 20 years or more. And that can be tricky. Also with the town shop, as far as the roof and the structure of the roof, I don't know if it's possible to possibly mix in some roof infrastructure updating with the actual solar. Another idea would be, there's been talk about the park development and talk about a gazebo and some kind of area that might be solar powered covered, and having some kind of access point for vendors to plug in down, at the field or kind of wherever that might make sense. Might be something to think about.
Okay.
One other thing I just thought of, this is Laura, is if there was anything that could be done solar wise at the hockey rink in the winter to provide some heat for people who are watching hockey. There's not a whole lot of infrastructure out there, but it's just something that's not usually on the radar, and maybe it's just something to kind of think about.
Like solar thermal stand seats for the stands that are solar thermal.
I don't know exactly how you would do it, but it just occurred to me that maybe there would be some use there for solar. There's lighting, and it's pretty big Klieg lights for night. I don't know. There might be some electrical way to use solar for spectator heat and for the lighting at night. Just a thought. I'm not necessarily recommending it. I'm just opening up the idea as a possibility.
Now you'd need a battery storage for use at night, which is this technology is getting much better, but it's still very expensive.
True.
But it's something to think about.
Some great ideas. Does anybody think climate action planning is something that we would want to pursue DOLA funding for?
I would say yes. Over the last handful of years that I've been part of SAB, there's been a theme of diluting our mission and being involved in too many things. And so I think having a plan keeps us all focused and motivated, kind of brings us to pointed tasks where we feel like we have the biggest impact and influence. So I do feel like a plan is very important.
Yeah, I think I agree. I mean, just based on the feedback that I read from you all on the Miranda on Envision 2020, 2030 is that, you know, prioritizing efforts. And I think a climate action plan would really help us sort of focus. What are your initial impressions of the mountain sustainability indicators? Do you think that would be helpful to sort of help us prioritize and plan?
Well, I guess, Garrett, I'd throw that back at you as a sustainability coordinator, and you've probably taken a good look at it. What's your opinion of it? Would it be helpful for
Yeah.
you as a platform of communication between you and us?
Yeah, I was really excited. I spoke to them earlier today about this. I spoke to them last week too. I think this is a really good opportunity for us to do a little bit of planning for no money. And so if we partnered with them for a couple of months, I think I think we could then go to DOLA and potentially ask for money to do a full climate action plan. I think doing the mountain sustainability indicators would show sort of the desire of Nederland to do full climate action planning. I think the mountain sustainability indicators will get us maybe 50% of the way there, but I think the data that's collected and just the ability to consolidate, to have a dashboard, to be able to show that to the board of trustees, to be able to show that to other commissions, I think it'll be really helpful for the SAB.
Yeah, I just
I certainly respect your opinion. So, but looking forward to seeing the video.
It's my biggest hesitation. The video. I really want to get my hands on the Excel file. I haven't, for some reason, they're not just going to give it to me for some reason. So the video is okay. It'll provide you basically with what the information was provided tonight, but the devil's in the details. It'll be, um, it'll be great. I mean, they're going to look at our transportation data, our air quality data, waste diversion. So it's sort of a complete package with very little effort on our side. Probably some of my time for sure, just helping them out. But I think this definitely helps us get towards climate action planning.
Well, it sounds like it's worth pursuing to me. What do other people think?
This is Mel. I definitely think it's worth pursuing. Like I said, our sustainability action plan is done. So it's 2008 or 2009. So it'd be good to get another plan going. I think what I see in the Envision 2020 document is a focus from Netherland residents on really looking at carbon neutrality. And so maybe not just action plan, but a climate action plan specifically focused around how do we get close to that carbon neutrality we want to get. So one thing I was thinking that I think Garrett, you will be valuable not in just getting them the data that we already have and some of the plans that we have, but I think also in then taking that dashboard and that very large data set and large document that they give us and figuring out how to narrow down some key pieces to promote to the public and explain to the public.
I agree, Melody. The last thing I want is this crazy Excel document that just lives on our Google Drive. Like, you know, I think it was Hunter or maybe Laura, where they were like, okay, well, how does this dashboard live on our website? I'm thinking like, yes, you know, it needs to be public facing. You know, it can't just be living on our Google Drive. So I will definitely take on that task of making it actionable and visible for Netherland.
Yeah, I'm completely in support of it.
Hey, everybody, it's Erica. We just got that email from Chris P about the matching grant for this next round for 2021. And I'm thinking if we can have, if we can secure funding for Garrett again, and if this is something that, you feel like you have the bandwidth, Garrett, my biggest apprehension is really just like having the personnel and the hours and focus for another platform, since we have had a few platforms over the years. But if we do feel like we have someone, a point person, it seems like it would be really beneficial and a great way for us to focus our energy and our efforts, and then also share with some of our other mountain communities, like Jamestown and Ward, and share with Lions. So, Garrett, does it seem like a good avenue for sharing that information as well?
Exactly. That's the whole. This is tailored towards mountain communities. So she didn't talk a lot about the vision of what their coalition is doing, but it's really, they're partnering with mountain communities in South America, Central America, and so hopefully, it's sort of a global way of doing sustainability in mountain communities. So I would like, if we're all in an agreement, I would like to present this to the BOT, maybe have a resolution so it's at least informed, that way all the other trustees are informed of this. Do you think that's an appropriate action to take?
I think it is, but we want to make sure that we have something that's real, doesn't require a lot of overhead in terms of study, and is real straightforward, and I don't know what the right word is, but we don't want to overwhelm them with details. We just want it very straightforward and something easy to get your arms around.
Are you talking about the presentation to the BOT, keeping it straightforward for them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like I thought what we just heard tonight was a little too wonkish. I mean, it was fine for us, but we know these ideas and this terminology and things like that, and I don't think if someone isn't that familiar with it, they're not going to really grasp it.
No, I wasn't going to have her present to the BOT. I would do that and present, and with whoever from the SAB can join me, that'd be great.
That sounds good.
If that sounds good for you all.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. What other people think?
I think it's great. Miranda, should we make a motion that we recommend that we apply for the SOLA grant for the BOT meeting?
Yes. Yes. Someone wants to do that. So Garrett, walk me through timeframes then. You know the drill. It's going to have to come as a discussion, so you need to give yourself the chance for 2 dates. You know how it goes.
Yeah. Give me, so you usually like your things on Wednesday, right?
Well, yeah. So are you want to go? Obviously, next week is out because that packet's already done.
Yeah.
But do you want to do the 15th, and then with the 6th? What's the date of that grant? The 6th is the backup. Like I missed that.
So if you give me a couple of weeks to get you that information,
Okay.
so whatever, I don't know when the BOT meets.
So you've got the 19th, or excuse me, the 15th of September, and then your next one is going to be October 6th. There's a 3-week gap between those two.
Yeah, if we could do the 15th, the September 15th, that'll be good. I'll get you your materials by the 8th.
Okay. And then but if they don't move it from a discussion to an action, you're still good then if you had to come back on the 6th. Yes.
Yeah, but they're going to move it to an action.
I mean, that's your MO. Garrett's been pretty amazing at getting all of his stuff moved from discussion to action. It shocks us all. Like,
it's wishful thinking.
We get so jealous. We're like, why can't they have them with our stuff? No, it's good. Okay, I'll stick it on that way. But yeah, I think emotion, it is nice to be able to put in the aim, Melody, like what action Sab took on this. So a formal motion would be ideal.
All right, so I motion that the Netherland SAB recommends the DOT approve the application of, what's the name of the grant?
This is not a grant. This is just a partnership with the Mountain Resilience Coalition. That's my understanding that what we're doing. There's no grant funding needed for this. This is free labor.
Okay, but and you weren't talking about applying for the DOLA grant now then?
The DOLA funds, I need to do my homework. I mean, we have I think we mentioned 6 different ideas. So, I mean, I need to do a lot more research before I can present anything. I need to get some confirmation from you all on what we want to do. So, we could do that. I know we're not going to meet until later next month. So, I mean, I could do some digging about the food co-op, solar on the visitor center, what's going on at the park. I can do some of that digging next week and maybe just email you all, to see if any of these ideas are worthwhile. But it's going to be, kind of difficult to get a presentation together by September 8th.
So let's keep this separate, Melody.
Yeah.
Is my impression. Let's keep this separate. And then Garrett, we end up in this situation pretty often where there's lots of good ideas. And sometimes it's just nice to choose something that's the most streamlined. So if that's helpful, if we want to go back to the DOLA grant and just really hash out a pretty simple plan, that might be a good idea as well, just since you don't have a lot of time.
I agree. The co-op is a bit roundabout, whereas solar in the visitor center is real straightforward. And then, like Laura said, it could be a demo project as well as educational, as well as providing heat for this visitor center.
So maybe a motion on solar on visitor center, and I can do homework on that and present also on September 8th.
I'll make that a motion.
I second that, Alan. I am curious how many panels we think we could put on the visitor center.
I'll be doing that, Reese. I'll let you know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Chris is in the loop on that.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, Chris doesn't love that building. If you ask Chris, he'd like to rip it down and start over again. So I am doing a recap of this just because Chris can't be here tonight. Garrett, I'm going to CC you when I send that. But this is something he'll definitely want to connect with you because again, we're not going to scrap that building, but I think he is going to have some opinions on what makes the most sense.
Yeah, well, we had the conversation with him. He was the one that suggested either town hall or the visitor.
Okay. Interesting.
Those were his suggestions.
Yeah, Cynthia is the one she's really concerned from a building standpoint that the roof at town hall is just not in a stable condition.
Yeah, well, that's off the list.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. All right. I'm going to send that to Chris.
That's not a good idea.
No.
Okay, so we have a motion on that by Alan and a second by Erica. So calling a vote, Alan,
Yes.
Erica,
Yes, ma'am.
Reed,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
I vote yes. Did I get everyone? So then I'm trying to figure out this about working with the Resilience Coalition.
Repeat that.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to word this motion regarding working with the Mountain Resilience Coalition. What are we applying to work with them? Are we developing an MOU? Are we getting, what's the product we're getting out of it titled?
I think the motion is just to present a recommendation to partner with the Mountain Resilience Coalition to the BOT.
Okay.
If you keep it like that, I can work on. I don't know what. I'm guessing an MOU or something like that will be required. I haven't had that conversation with them.
Okay. So I motion that the Netherland SIB recommends the BOT approve a partnership with the Mountain Resilience Coalition.
Seconded.
All right. We're gonna call a vote. Alan,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Hunter.
Yes.
Okay. Both motions pass unanimously.
Awesome. All right, so I will start digging into getting solar panels on the visitor center, looking at that feasibility. So you might see emails from me in the next week or two about that. And then I will update you on sort of next steps with MSI, and I'll get a presentation to Miranda on both of those items by September 8th, with a plan of presenting on September 15th. Sound good, Miranda?
Sounds great. Thank you, Garrett. Appreciate it.
Cool.
Hey, Garrett, when you're talking to Chris about the town hall roof, maybe the town hall could put in a little bit of money to make that roof stronger if that's a structural problem anyway. Maybe we put it on there too.
So it is something we're talking about for the budget, but the problem we're running into is obviously with COVID, our budget we're pursuing for 2021 is we were all asked to reduce our budgets by 10 to 15% when COVID hit. And we're planning to roll that same reduction into 2021. And so while the roof is a priority, I do think we're going to come up against just not having the funding. But it is something that is on Karen and Rita, who's our new accountant, it's on their radar.
I mean, I'll talk to Chris, but I mean, DOLA funding, maybe that includes a new roof. I don't know. I'll talk to Chris on that though. Yeah.
Okay.
But that adds a hefty cost. All right. So if we move on to the next agenda item, I'll try to keep these things brief. Yeah, so we presented August 4th to the BOT. You all had an opportunity to provide input to that presentation. I thought it was a productive conversation. You know, and I'll just kind of go through what some of the trustees had to say. Trustee Taylor talked about batteries, as it relates to residential rooftop solar. Certainly becoming more common. Mayor Larson talked about new natural gas lines and, potentially banning those on new construction. Talked about the importance of electrification and electric vehicles. Trustee Combs, I liked his point of view. He really wanted the SAB to look at urban design. So, what are the community needs of residents? How do people get from point A to point B? So like streamlining transportation and that sort of thing. Let's see here. Trustee Combs talked a little bit about the Nederland planning process. And he mentioned, I'm not sure what housing project, but apparently it didn't go through the SAB. But, so obviously a concern. And then Trustee Apt talked about collaboration amongst commissions, maybe doing a meeting with ProSab, DDA, and SAB. And then Trustee Combs talked about presenting the Trails Master Plan in front of the SAB. Alan, were there any other things that you remember? I know it's a few weeks ago.
I think you hit the high spots. I think the nice thing was BOT is very receptive to environmental initiatives and supportive of SAB. And, the thing about Eric Ishmael Combs is he's all about action items. Let's get things actionable and let's get to implementation. So that's encouraging to see that someone on the BOT is that enthusiastic about getting there. But, you've done a good job of pointing out that there's a sort of amount of planning that takes place. I have to admit, I'm a little disappointed. We had, I was the only one from SAB there. And I don't know if we had a mediocre communication about that. But, Melody, I know she had the wrong time, but it was a good opportunity for all of us to talk to BOT, and, only Garrett and I were there. So
I would agree that was a noted concern for Chris and I, just because the board is continuously seeing Garrett, which is great. But anytime Garrett comes forward, we'd love to see more SAB members, just because Garrett is new and he can't answer every question. And so just for future presentations, I know town staff were hoping for the same.
Hey, Miranda, I don't seem to be getting any emails.
So Garrett told me that, but I had your email. It was in the listserv. Is that read at nedtrips.com. Do you want me to use something else?
That's the email. And then I get them from Garrett on that email.
So I'm not sure. I can check again right now, but yeah, I'm not sure what that. I mean, we can just take note of it, and I can try to, every time something comes through, just send it directly to you. And maybe you can just let me know.
Maybe remove me and add me back.
Yeah, let me try that. And if I'll forward some things to you as they come through. And if you get them directly from me, that will be helpful information. So let's try that for now.
Yeah, check your spam filter. You might have marked the SAB email. Okay. Yeah, so I really enjoyed the conversation. They were like Alan said, they seemed very enthusiastic about sustainability and certainly nerded out on electric vehicles for a little bit longer than I would have liked. But no, it was a great conversation. So yeah, so moving on. So Solar Energy International, we talked about it last meeting, and you all said that this is something that you all would like to pursue. we would need to submit an application. I have that application. I think I sent it, maybe I just sent it to Melody. So if you want me to take a first stab at the application, and I can, send it to whomever, maybe just send it to Melody for her input, I can do that.
Yes.
Okay, I'll take a stab, and it'll likely, if we do get involved with SCI, we can plan this. So maybe it happens in January of I don't know. We would have to figure out a good timeline, but at least let's at least submit an application, then we could figure out what dates make sense. Great, and then I just have a few other minor updates. The Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, that ladder grant application, so that's an application for a zero waste action plan, as well as a little bit of money funding for town staff. That was submitted, and the award status should be sent out on October 15th, that week of October 15th. So we'll know more then. We are going to be collecting waste diversion data from the Netherland transfer station. I've been in contact with Miranda earlier this week, so we're going to get Debbie, what is it, Donna?
Yeah, Donna Monticello.
She's going to be basically pulling, hey, hey customer, are you from the town of Nederland? Okay, if you are, what are you bringing? Recycled material, compost? So we'll be able to estimate what percentage of the transfer station is getting used by town residents. We can then extrapolate that data to put in the Excel document to calculate our total waste diversion for the town. So that'll be good information, especially for mountain sustainability indicators. They're going to want to have that data. The Charge Ahead Colorado, as you know, we got that fast charger grant. Yes, Reed. Reed, can you hear us? You're on.
I am. Do this. Just want you the transfer station.
I'm sorry, I missed that question. Reed, can you ask that again?
Are you just having Donna collect data, or are you having everybody at the transfer station?
I'm leaving that up to Donna. I hope to have a conversation with her when she gets my survey. Whatever is easiest for them.
Oh, right on. Okay.
Hey, Garrett. As a social scientist myself, I would imagine that anyone that works at the transfer station can give you pretty accurate numbers on what percentage of people are recycling and bringing in trash and where they're from. And it might be valuable to just kind of get a baseline interview with them, if that's at all possible.
Sure. Yeah, I don't mind heading up there and talking with them. I think that's a great idea. That'll be good just to compare what data I captured and sort of just get a pulse check on how accurate that data is.
I would also, talk to them about, not pulling just people, like maybe once an hour on the hour they interview, 5 people in a row, just so that they aren't choosing and getting, artificial numbers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I want them to pull everybody for a couple of days. That's sort of, Don and we already spoke at the spring cleanup day, and that's sort of what we talked about, is just for a couple of days, just pull everybody and see what the numbers look like.
Awesome. That's great. Thanks, Garrett.
Okay, the Charge Ahead Colorado, so Nederland was awarded that direct current fast charger. So that's a $50,000 grant. And I believe the only the only $50,000 awardee in the area in the Denver Metroplex. So that's pretty awesome, pretty good opportunity for Nederland. I submitted a procurement plan, and Chris and I were sort of tag teaming in that effort. There is on a different topic, CDOT has two grant programs. And I don't know if I can't remember. I did send it to you. I think I did send both these opportunities to you. But one of them is Revitalizing Main Street. So a lot of communities down here in like the Boulder area, like Louisville, well, I think Longmont too. They're putting sort of their downtown on sort of, streets, because of social distancing and increasing table space and that sort of thing. CDOT is offering money through an application process. It looks like, so I can send that to you all. There is no deadline. It doesn't look like there's a deadline. It's sort of just an ongoing process. So feel free to take a look at that. And it's not necessarily directly related to what we typically talk about at SAB, but we could, if bike lanes or bike signage is needed, I think that would be applicable for some of funding. So yeah, I can send that all to you all again, so you can look at that. Are there any questions on that?
I don't have a question, but I'm interested in your idea of signage and walkability and direction of tourists is something that the DDA, I think, has looked at for quite a while. And I'm wondering if SAB and the DDA could partner maybe to work on getting some sustainable related directional signage. What do you think?
I would definitely say if you're going to go the wayfinding route, they have a whole committee dedicated to wayfinding. So that collaboration, an effort for people not to step on toes, I think a collaboration makes sense. And Claudia is your chair of that committee.
Yeah, does Nederland have a designated bike route through the town?
We don't. We could certainly use one. I think we're a little lacking in bike infrastructure.
Yeah, I think we can talk about that on this map thing that we're talking about next too.
Perfect. Okay. Great. And the last item that I had was just, and then Eric already brought it up, was the 2021 Boulder County Sustainability Grant that opens September 28th, closes November 6th. So it's happening pretty shortly. So I think we'll want to present whatever we decide to do with that grant to the BOT sooner than later.
Yeah, I think we should move ahead as quickly as possible.
So I would propose that we work on a similar grant as we did last year to fund Garrett. Miranda, is it appropriate to talk about this with Garrett on the same call? Can we continue to fund his position, or would we have to open it up again?
You don't have to open it up again. We can decide to extend his contract if awarded.
Okay. And could that look exactly like it did this year, or it could? Okay. So Boulder would allow that for up to 3 years?
Right. I know you and I, we've talked about how, the goal is to eventually, but Garrett, correct me if I'm wrong, in that grant you just applied for, you did seek funding for staffing, which could be used as a match if needed for your position, right? Isn't that what we did? You did? I
didn't even think about as a match, but it does cover 5 hours of work for a whole year. So it was a pretty significant chunk of change.
Because I know, Erica, the goal Boulder County wants us to eventually fund that position internally. I think we're in a tough time with COVID. So it's, if we can get closer to increasing Garrett's hours and, obviously making him more of the role more of a permanent part of town staff, That needs to be the goal, correct, Erica, over the next 3 years, right?
Yeah, that's my understanding. And that's what Lions did to fund, Garrett's part-time work there currently. What's everyone's thoughts on this?
If I remember correctly, I think there was a percentage breakdown of how much of the position had to be funded by the town by year 2 and year 3 or something like that. I think it's in the original application.
So we'll definitely want to pull that because right now we're in the middle of budget. And so I think having that information, if we need to have any sort of match, we need to know that within the week.
Yeah, everybody has their other ideas, and I'll try to pull that up real quick.
Thank you.
And Melody, I'll send you Tim Broderick's most recent email. There might be some like a 20% reduction of that grant just due to COVID and the impact on that grant fund. So I'll send you the most recent email that I got from him.
I was going to say, I would hope so, because most municipalities can't afford to do significant matches or even anything.
Right.
And we wouldn't want to lose the position just because of that. So obviously, if we need to figure out how to incorporate it into our budget, our first work session is on the 8th of September, which is why we'd want to have that information. Even if it's 20% and that's not what it ends up being, we should probably be looking at the possibility of that.
And I think what Keith is saying is that while we've typically gotten 15,000 as the max for the grant, that this year that max might be 11,000 or 13,000.
Yeah.
It might be a lower number.
Okay.
Exactly. You're right, Melody. Yep.
Garrett, are you going to be continuing with Lions next year? Is that a permanent part-time position?
Lions, it's the same. They're looking at budget cuts. I don't know. Like, my name has definitely come up along with 2 other part-timers over there. There's a couple board trustee members. It's very political and a bit of a hostile environment right now in Lions.
And to clarify, you mentioned the 5 hours that was part of this other grant funding. Yeah. Is that 5 hours per week for all of 2021?
Yes.
Okay, and that's on the waste plan.
It'd be assisting the zero waste action plan. So getting community members involved, building what I call a playbook, which is basically a how-to guide on zero waste action planning, so that we can give that action plan to other mountain communities like Ward or Jamestown. That's sort of how I sort of swung the need for that support.
And I think what town staff, we don't have, it's for kind of that staff grant match, as Garrett was saying, but I think we were hoping that could be tied into the sustainability coordinator, just because there's just nobody who can give, in town staff right now, who could give an additional 5 hours to that. So it made more sense to increase the hours of the sustainability coordinator through that funding.
So just thinking out loud, we could potentially apply for less hours, Melody, or apply for the same amount of hours, but do a match with the waste hours. Is that possible, Miranda?
Yes. Fingers crossed, assuming we get funded. Yes. That could be.
Yeah, I did have a conversation with Lester Karplus about, maybe joining SAB, but he didn't want to do it formally, but he was heavily involved in zero waste efforts where he lived previously and was very interested in helping us out with that issue. I don't know how much time he would have to devote to it, but I will definitely ask him. He might easily have a couple hours a week anyway. I don't know about 5, but.
No, Alan, we're talking about rolling that into Garrett's position.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I think that's kind of what I was thinking. Is anyone opposed to focusing this next Boulder County matching grant on continuing Garrett's position as our sustainability coordinator?
And I'm happy to log off if you guys want to have a private conversation.
No, I think it's really critical to keep Garrett around, and I don't care if he hears us say that.
Yeah, we'd have to have noticed that as an executive. If you're going to talk too deep about his employment, Garrett, and you feel uncomfortable, we'd have to notice that as an executive session, which didn't happen for tonight. So either Garrett stays or we stop this conversation. So Garrett, I think it's also your comfort level as well.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying not regarding necessarily Garrett, but the position itself. I think we should keep the position in the grant moving forward, and try to expand it and get town to put it, throw in some money, because it's obviously a valuable position to have.
So it's looking like the county will give us 3 years to use the grant funding in entirety for a sustainability coordinator position. And then in funding years 4 and 5, county funds need to ramp down and municipality funding needs to ramp up.
That's great news.
So we can apply this year for sustainability coordinator position, and I definitely think we should.
Agreed. That's great. Great news.
Hunter, Laura, what are your thoughts?
I completely agree. I think Garrett is a huge asset and has gotten so much accomplished in the short time that he's been with us, and I completely support the position and having Garrett stay around and applying for the grant to support it.
I totally agree. Also, this is Laura. I can see that Garrett is a huge asset, so I'm in agreement.
It sounds like everyone's in agreement. Is it appropriate for, I'm happy to write this next round and add in some information. Is anybody opposed to me starting on that and making a doc and sharing with everybody?
Erica, I think that's great. I'm just wondering if you guys are, if you all want to make just the 15th of September kind of your SAB grant day, and you bring forward the it's before the deadline, but you bring forward the sustainability, or you feel like maybe that's too aggressive and you need a little bit more time. When does it due, Garrett? When?
It opens September 28th. It's not due until November 6th.
Okay. So I guess you have October. I don't know if you wanted to just, since Garrett's already going for 2 others, if it's just worth bringing it all. If you.
Well, and another thing, we could wait until we hear from the CDPHE grant. We find out October 15th. So, you know, we might have a better understanding of what next year is looking like if we wait until that, mid-October, late October.
So just for SAB to know, I don't know if I've said this to you, but the board, if they haven't heard about something before, they want it to come forward as a discussion before an action, which means you need to prepare yourself for 2 meetings for anything you do. So my only concern is in November, the first meeting of November is canceled because of the election. So your first meeting in November is not until November 10th. I just don't, we don't want things to be cut super tight. So just something to consider, that anytime you come before the board right now, you have to do 2 times, plan for 2 times.
Yeah, my question, Miranda, is if we came, without a presentation or anything, and for the BOCO grant at least, because we'll have presentations for other stuff, and said, and this action item is that just like last year, we want to use the BOCO grant to fund the sustainability coordinator position, and we'd like to apply for that. And, we'll come back on the action item with the more thorough application, et cetera. But if we could just bring it up and at least get a nod of 4 of, yes, this is pursuing, because I feel like my general feeling is the BOT would approve that, but I'd also like to know what your feeling is on that.
Yes, that's exactly.
I'm optimistic as well. I think the BOT would approve it.
I mean, that's what they're looking for. So, unlike kind of maybe Garrett, the things he's brought forward previously, he moves them from discussion to action. What it would be is you're keeping it just as a discussion, which is not a bad thing. I'm almost recommending you do come forward on the 15th because they're going to be right in the middle of budget. So, while again, we're not necessarily looking for the board to match, if magic happened and there was a way to fund that position even more so that the sustainability coordinator could work more hours, it's a good time to be having those conversations. So I would like to see you bring it forward on the 15th, just as a discussion item to let them know this is on your radar.
Yeah, I don't see any problem with that. I'm happy to have it ready by the 15th.
I think it's a good timing too, because Garrett just did, what is SAB working on? And so they've seen on numerous occasions how valuable the sustainability coordinator and really Garrett has been to SAB and our community. So we don't want to lose that momentum.
Is anybody opposed to the 15th?
Great. So we'll plan on bringing that BOCO before the BOT as well.
Right.
Melody, are you thinking a presentation or just here's the application?
I mean, I'd like to know what everybody else thinks, but I feel like because we did, a major presentation last year to hire you and you've been in front of them pretty frequently, I'm not sure we need a full-blown presentation. I think we just want to, get a sense of confirmation from the BOT that yes, they want to continue with a sustainability coordinator.
I think maybe part of your presentation may be good. I agree, Melody. I don't think you need the whole thing. But what I have noticed is that your 4 new trustees were not involved previously. So whatever happened last year, they didn't have a pulse on it. So everything is new for those 4. That's going to be a heavy, just so you guys know, it's also going to be a heavy grant night because the GOCO grant's going to come forward that day, 2 from ProSab. And I know they'll have a presentation. So almost maybe just to keep with the flow of probably how that day will go, a presentation just a brief one might be appropriate.
Well, like at least a summary of all of the things that he's accomplished already in the position.
That's a great idea because you did what SAB's accomplished, but I think highlighting what Garrett has done on his own would be awesome.
We could probably do that in dollars and cents too, and just like how much pay you've applied for, Garrett, in your short time here, especially with the hurdles of COVID and navigating the virtual world.
Do you want me to provide you with that information, the summary of accomplishments? Or do you want me to put together the presentation, or let me know what you guys want me to do?
I think you're in the best position to put some of the accomplishments, but someone else needs to probably put the presentation together. I mean, personally, I don't think that with COVID, we would have gotten anything done without you.
Okay, well, I will send over a list of all the things since February. It seems like forever ago, man.
Garrett, I'll pull together a Google slide presentation so that we can all edit it if need be. But if you can send that to all of us, and I'll build it into a presentation format.
Okay.
Yeah, but then one of the board members, and I would do it, or whoever wants to, needs to present it to the board, not Garrett, I think. I don't think he needs to get up there and say, here's all the things I did. I think one of us needs to get up and say, here's all the things he did.
I agree. Or multiple of us.
I'm happy to present But to be completely transparent, it's hard for me to get it all done right now. So if somebody can help me with that, Melody, or if anybody else is interested. And then it's just hard for me to keep track of days and these different meetings and stuff. So just maybe a reminder right before, Garrett. I just don't want to blow it and not show up to something. To be completely honest.
No, I understand. Yeah. I'll remind you that week.
And to give you guys all a heads up, I'm starting a PowerPoint in Google Doc right now, so I'll share it with you guys.
Right. I'll certainly be there too, so I can chime in.
Yeah, I'm attending the BOT meetings now that they're virtual and I can. So that's I should be able to help. And I'll go on and look at the slides and stuff and be putting them together as well.
Good.
Well, and this is Hunter, and I can definitely call into that meeting as well and help out with the presentation anyway. I'll also look on the Google Drive too. And Erica, I'll just reach out to you separately and see what I can do to help.
Perfect. That's all I had on my coordinator updates.
Well, congratulations on the grant. It was really a coup, so thanks for going after that.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, with the Excel infrastructure, I mean, that's got to be over 100K worth of grant funding. So it's awesome.
Going to be a great asset.
Speaking of Excel infrastructure, Garrett, I know you were on that call, but we were on a call with DC4CA, and I did ask for some kind of education piece on how to navigate Excel. Because right now, funding like they're giving us is going to a lot of different communities. And, we just want to make sure that we're all kind of having the right relationship with Excel so that they continue moving in the direction we all want them to, right? With more renewable energy and just supporting each other as best we can with our relationship with Excel. So just a heads up on that. They're going to be sharing some trainings on different topics like navigating Excel and other issues that were brought up in the last meeting.
Do you know when that training's taking place?
No, I haven't seen any dates or a schedule for that. Have you seen anything, Garrett?
I have not.
Okay. Well, speaking of Excel, we tomorrow at noon. So when you send out the flyers for if anybody has any input, make the beginning you want to give. That would think we've talked to Hope Jordan about DDA and reaching out to businesses, but she's not optimistic given what's going on with COVID that businesses want to get involved in energy issues right now. But it's worth at least getting everything in order and ready to go.
So to piggyback off of Alan, I guess two things. I don't know if Becca decided the flyers were permanent. She printed a bunch for us just because the expense of trying to print those colored and double-sided town doesn't have. So that was really awesome of them for printing those. 100 of them went out to the Netherland area seniors to go out with their meals. And then I have an additional 50 here at Town Hall. So feel free to grab some if you want. Because the DDA didn't want to pursue the business, I am pursuing the business side just because I'm interacting with them so much lately over the PPE we purchased for them. So Becca did send out some information about the business programming that we're interested in, and she would love feedback tomorrow. So if you all have a chance to look at that tonight or tomorrow morning to give her feedback, that is something she's looking for.
That's great. Well, thanks, Miranda. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
And we got
we're almost.
some more of those energy kits over to the food co-op, right?
Yes, those went over, but we're actually out now. The town is officially does not have any more. Sharon did an amazing, between Garrett at the town cleanup and Sharon being at town hall temporarily for 6 weeks, she hustled them and they are gone. And so I asked Becca if there was any plan to be giving out more. And I probably have like 10 left. She said no, there was not any plan. So town is officially out. Outside of I believe the 10 I have of the energy kits.
Didn't we have 700?
Yep.
Well, I just went into the shed, into the stone garage, a week ago to get some for the farmer's market, and there was still pallets.
Oh, really? So Chris told me we were all out, so he must not know that they're in the stone garage?
Unless he got them from there already.
All right, I'll have to check with him because Sharon does a great job of moving them out, so I'd love to give her more, but we don't have any more at the town shop.
Yeah, I'm worried because I sold 10. Well, not sold because they're free, but we're supposed to give away 10 this week to people that ordered them online for the farmer's market. So now I'm worried I need to go get some.
Well, if they're not there for some reason, I have some still, Melody.
Okay.
But I will find out.
That is fantastic. That is such a huge accomplishment. And Garrett, will you put that on your list? I know it was definitely a joint effort, but and to do all of those kits during COVID, that's great. I'm super impressed. Good job, team. Woo!
Yeah, thank you, Erica, for all the ones you distributed.
All right, we'll find out. Get the answers to that. I know these next things are mine, and so I guess I just want to do like a time check since we're coming close on our time. So Melody, if you don't mind, I guess we had Envision as a discussion. I only received responses though from 2 board members, so I am a little hesitant because I think a verbal discussion to answer these questions is going to be very timely. So I was going to propose that maybe the members who haven't had a chance to respond to those questions, email me your responses. Garrett, I also meant to tell you that you are included in that. And then we could have this discussion at the September meeting, or we could verbally do it today, but it could probably take, 30 plus minutes. I don't know where you guys feel because it's almost 8:45.
Yeah, I prefer a suggestion if you guys just email your responses to her, but I'm totally open to stay up if everybody wants to.
This is Hunter. I agree with Melody. I'd like the opportunity to just email them to you, and then we can talk about it at the next meeting.
Yeah, that's a preference because I can start to pull out the themes and really identify what are the kind of common answers. It's tough when I only have 2 people. So I would agree if you guys are comfortable, I would love to give the other board members plus Garrett the opportunity to answer those questions via email.
You're going to send them to me again?
I will send them to you again, Reed, on its own. So then I guess I can kind of be quick, or I can save the map because I know we also have the community gardens, which I also know the food pantry is looking for resolution to that, ideally tonight. So do you want me to table the map or do you want to discuss that tonight, the town map? I don't know how urgent you guys felt like that was.
Seems like we need more feedback, don't we?
Yeah, so there's kind of the 2 things. I had the Envision, which I would need your feedback on all these questions here. And then we were going to discuss the map and kind of the additional features you wanted to add to it, like where recycling is and composting, the bike track. I'm also happy to say, again, because it's late, I'm happy to save this conversation for the next meeting. I'm open either way.
How does everybody feel about Miranda sending us this PDF of the map and then we email her back kind of our suggested things to put on there, and then it's a bunch of stuff that's real, we're all over the place, then we talk about it at the meeting. And if it's clear, how to move forward, then we don't need to have it at the next meeting.
I think that's a good idea.
I agree, Hunter.
Yeah.
I would just like to add that I think a deep conversation about walkability and bikeability in Netherland. So maybe if we can add that to our next agenda after we look at this map, maybe we can strategize on some of those aspects of the map.
Yeah, I also know that ProSab is working on a lot of maps, so I think I have a meeting with their chair tomorrow, so maybe I'll talk with her about what maps she feels like would be appropriate to share. I do think, not tomorrow, but sometime in the near future, maybe before the end of the year, we should have a collaborative meeting with members of ProSab, because I do think a lot of the things you all want to work on will align, especially if that GoCo grant goes through.
Great.
So,
Yeah,
food for thought in the future.
Hey, Miranda, last time we had a joint session with ProSab, I think we talked about setting something up regularly as just on the calendar for when we meet with them, at least twice a year.
Yeah.
If you could reach out to them and see, if there's a time that would work for them, I think that would be really helpful, even just to have some, a topic that we're focused on, but to have some casual conversation as well. I know it's tough with virtual meetings, but we could have a fun icebreaker and just, get to have a little bit of dialogue between groups.
That's awesome. I think I know that they would. It's kind of a new board, and so I think that it would be a great opportunity to just realign the projects everyone's working on. So yes, I will bring that up. Okay, well, I'll email my 2 items then, and then we'll revisit them next month. And then gardens it is, Melody.
Can I say one more thing really quickly? Are we the CDOT grant possibility for wayfinding and walkability and bikeability? Since they're already working on that, are we going to be sharing with them that grant opportunity? Have we just decided that, or?
We should certainly let them know of it. Yeah, I don't know what their priorities are or sort of what they're working on. So Miranda, if you want to forward that to them, if they're already working on some of that stuff,
Yeah.
Or else we can just talk about it at a ProSab SAB collaboration meeting.
Yeah, so we're going to have a public open forum, and I'll be sending an email out tomorrow about their GoCo grant, which is really taking that Barker Meadows plan from last year, dialing it down a little bit, but doing pocket park development. So during COVID, especially, people, they're congregating a ton at Chipeta. And so we want to give them other spaces that they can go to. And then we're also looking for funding to open the park bathrooms back up with touchless surfaces. So that's what we're pursuing from that GoCo standpoint. But wayfinding will be very important to that. And then at that point, we need to involve the DDA, or at least Claudia. Look at the 3-way collaboration there.
Cool.
Which I know the Board of Trustees would love to see. Okay, got it.
So, as this kind of pulls together a couple different things we already discussed that happened. So we got a letter from Hope to the SAB after that BOT presentation and meeting, where Garrett and Alan were the only ones that were in attendance. And being new and just going off of, the slides and the pages that I have put together, and also part of it being me just not updating the document and using the old PDF. Basically, there was a misunderstanding, and Hope was concerned about it, and the Netherland Food Pantry was also concerned about it, of SAB basically taking the credit for the community gardens and the community greenhouse that are up at the community center now. So Hope emailed me individually as well as emailing the SAB. So that was one major reason that this time I did, give a personal response. And so I just wanted to clarify, and I typed this paragraph out in the agenda, but I'll just read it, that SAB was instrumental in getting the community gardens back online and making sure water for the site was free of charge. And that was back in 2015, 2016. And so then we acknowledge Elizabeth Allen, who was the volunteer at the time, for her dedicated work as the community champion for this project to reopen the gardens and administrate plots, etc. And we also acknowledge the generous and dedicated work of Hope Jordan and the Netherland Food Pantry for taking over administration and gardening at the community garden site. And that happened just a couple years ago. So SAB does not take any credit for the continued maintenance of the community garden. When Elizabeth moved on to bigger and better things, our wonderful community and hardworking volunteers are the ones that deserve all the credit for the improvement made and its current bounty. So for example, the fence and all the vegetables that are growing there, etc., has really been a lot of Hope herself. And this has been her passion pet project. So when she saw that it was on our 2019 to 2021 goals, that managing the community gardens was on there, she got concerned because it is something that she has been doing. And so I said, totally your concern is valid. This was an old document. And at the time, what that is referring to in managing plots at the community garden was when we were still planning on having the greenhouse down on the Boco field with a community garden next to it, as planned with ProSab. And obviously in the past, year, that got stopped and is no longer happening. And we have not taken it out of the document officially. And so I think that's where a lot of the confusion is coming from. And the food pantry would like us to address that in some way, I believe. But I was also not at the meeting. So Miranda, if you have anything to add, definitely.
Yeah. Their concern is grant funding. I guess the way in which this also got brought up was one of their funders was confused when the food pantry was claiming that they managed those garden spaces, but yet we have a document on our town's website that says otherwise. There has been a request to remove that document from our website. My feeling and the way statute reads is we don't just take down historical information. What SAB would really need to do is have another strategic session where you revisit your goals and update them to remove them. But we can't just take down a document just because. So that's kind of what you're up to.
Hope did a lot down there. She put in those raised beds with some sort of grant funding, and brought in all the new soil and everything, and the hoops and whatnot last year.
I think what it is, if that is the case in which this is now a food pantry project, it's, while yes, a strategic planning session would be nice to revisit your goals, it may just be, Melody, where SAB issues a written statement on your letterhead that just states that, you started it, but now it's a food pantries and something like that, where we can upload that without removing all your goals or having to revisit all that right now, unless you all feel like it's worth reassessing your 2019 to 2021 goals.
I guess I just want to clarify that there's two separate things here. So there's the issue of when we were presenting the slides that caused Hope to email me, it was that in those slides, we had a picture of the community gardens up, and it mentioned that we had helped restart those community gardens. That was in reference to multiple years ago at the current site that Hope is now administering. In the 2019 goals document, that community garden site was a future site that did not actually get built. That was not referring to the site behind First Street. So I think that's where the clarification needs to be made, is that the 2019 goals document for community agriculture was to open up a second area that is a community garden / community greenhouse, whereas the presentation in the slide was, this is what we did a couple years ago.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I mean, I think what the food pantry is looking for, either both directions. You know, the PowerPoint presentation is not anywhere really on our website. Is something that clarifies that document that it does currently sit on our website, which is your 2019 to 2021 goals. So without a formal adoption from SAB of a new document, you could just subsequently add a letter clarifying it.
I mean, because I wrote that document, I have the PDF. Could we also just update it to clarify at Gercio Ball Field or something, so it's clear that those community gardens we were referring to were a separate location, and then just have that amendment approved, and I'll send you the new PDF or whatever.
Yeah, who approved that? Was that just SAB, or did the BOT approve those goals? Because if it was just SAB who approved it, then yes, that's a quick fix. But if those were adopted by the Board of Trustees, you're then going to have to go back to them with any sort of change.
Well, we should make it not too specific, just vague, you know, that we're going to move the location of our focus for the garden and the greenhouse.
Yeah, I don't remember it ever going in front of the BOT. What happened was in our, what was it, 2018 Boulder County Sustainability Grant, they said that yes, we will give you, you know, these volunteer stipends, but one of the things we want out of it is a 3-year sustainability plan. And so that's where that document came from.
Okay, I'm just going to check. I believe it was adopted in like February 2019. Am I right in that statement?
I think so.
I'm just going to compare it to board packets from then, just to make sure. Okay, it was approved February 28th, 2019.
Yeah, we may have presented it to the board. I'm not sure if it was an action item or anything to adopt as policy. I think it was just, this is what we did with the grant, you know?
Okay, so February 28th, 2019 was a SAB meeting. So my assumption is that you all adopted it at a SAB meeting and that this can be updated on a SAB level only.
Yeah.
Okay, which is totally fine. So if you wanted to update the document and then bring it back next month for adoption, then that is one way to fix it, if that's the route that SAB wants to go.
Hey, Melody and all. Melody, you know better with this stuff, but I'm leaning more towards just writing a letter that just clarifies. I feel the food pantry's frustration if this came up with a funder of theirs. So I also wonder if it's worth just like reaching out to them and seeing what they would like from us. You know, if we should write something to their funder directly, or just a way to support them in these, you know, funds that they're trying to get.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure the kind of the level in which maybe this may or may not have created issues. I agree there maybe could be a way of resolving it without changing your guys' goal plans. And so I imagine you're going to reassess your goals next year anyways. But again, you're just trying to make a slight change. We could reach out to Chris Current. I mean, that's my conversations have really only been with Dennis and Hope. I've yet to hear from Chris Current, and I don't know, Melody, if you have, but I would be interested in her stance on this.
Yeah, well, Miranda, you reach back out to them and say, you know, we're totally willing to update our document. I did explain all this to Hope already, but it would probably be good to do again, and then say to them, and if you need a letter to your funder, you know, SAB is definitely willing to provide that to explain the confusion.
Yes, definitely. So you do want to, so yeah, let's just see what they say. And then based on the responses, we can bring this back to the board, either with a letter or an updated goals document in September.
Yeah, and everybody stop me if they disagree, but I guess what I'm thinking is that in our goals document, because it is historical and was written in 2018, I'm not really going back and trying to change anything. All I'm doing is making a clarification of that the community gardens in reference is a new community garden, not the current location. Okay, great. All right, so I guess we probably technically should have extended the meeting, what, 10 minutes ago? Because you guys started at 6:51. So I'm gonna.
Do your bylaws say that you're, I should know this, but I don't. So your bylaws, do they say you guys are held specifically to a 2-hour meeting? Or is that just preference?
I have no idea, but that whoever was there at town hall, was it Laura Jane Barr, said that our bylaws don't state anything about that and should technically then follow exactly the same as the BOT as regarding procedure and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I mean, it's like you can always do an extension, but I know like planning commission has no end time. And therefore, if you have no end time, there's no need to extend. But I can look into that. That's really irrelevant right now.
I mean, since I've been on SAB at 2013, we've always made a motion to extend after 2 hours.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I can tell you ProSAB does not. So I think there's some streamlining, nor does the DDA, and they don't have an end time either. So I'll figure that out and get back to you.
We're talking about that a lot, right? We all have different procedures.
Everyone does their own thing. I know we're getting ready to wrap up. I just wanted to tell you all that Chris couldn't be here today. He was paving Conger and was just completely wiped out. But he did want me to tell you all that you are his favorite advisory board, and he appreciates every single one of you so much. So just a little thanks. Yeah, he is playing favorites, though. He does enjoy working with you guys the most of them all. So he wanted me to tell you that tonight. And then he's sorry he couldn't be here.
Miranda, will you tell him that we miss him the most?
I will. I'm going to, yes. He was feeling really guilty. He's like, I'm so tired. And I was like, it's fine. We'll survive. Like, just go home. So I'm going to tell him that.
All right. Well, we have reached the end of the meeting. Does anybody have any other updates or information or pertinent things they want to share?
I just want to thank Erica for sitting in on the attending the Colorado Communities for Climate Action meeting on our behalf. So thanks, Erica.
Thanks, Alan. I really like those meetings, and I'm glad that I can sit in now, which is great.
I echo that. All right. So thank you all. And without further ado, meeting is adjourned at 9:05 p.m.
All right, everyone. Thanks.
Thanks.
night.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.